Hi everyone, it is Kimber, the Study Abroad Specialist here. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I am going to be answering one of the questions that I get probably once a week, and that is, are study abroad programs hard to get into? So before we kind of dive deeper, I just want to ask that you go ahead and hit the subscribe button and hit the like button on this video. You're going to like it even though you have not heard it yet. One of the things that I think is important to consider before we dive deeper in is that if you have not already checked out the series on finding study abroad programs, that's really going to help you. So look at that a little bit later on. But, when you're thinking about study abroad, it's important to remember that everything for admissions really depends on your particular program. So I always want to say that there's not going to be a sort of like, sort of one size fits all or a blanket way to apply to anything, unless you're going to be applying for, like a program within the same school or something like that. They may just have like a central application. But there's not going to be like one set thing that makes a difference. There are actually a lot of different factors that play into students getting accepted for study abroad. Now, one of the sort of things that a lot of students think is they think, oh, particularly if they are doing what we call institutionalized programs that are through their current high school, college, university, is that they just think, oh, I'll just sign up for this thing and, like it's study abroad, it's already a part of it. That is typically not always how it works. You still often have to apply, even if you are enrolled in that particular school. Now, it is a little bit easier, as we talked about in that video where I covered those programs, in the sense of that if you get accepted, then there's a lot of legwork that is done for you. So for example, applying for your visa and figuring out where your housing is going to be. And a lot of times you can apply, your financial aid and things like that to the program, but you still often have to apply. So I think that what I want to focus on in this video is really just thinking about sort of the key factors for what most students have to think about in terms of how easy or how hard it may be for them to get accepted into any study abroad program. So the first factor to consider is going to be your enrollment status. So I'm just going to be honest with you. For the majority of study abroad programs, you either are required to be, or it is recommended that you are a full-time student. Now, it does not mean that if you are a part-time student or if you are, an auxiliary student, sometimes people just like, they're taking maybe like classes here and there, but they're not fully enrolled in a program, that you can't do it. But particularly for institutionalized programs, because again, those are the ones that are connected directly to a university or a college or a high school or secondary school, or, for the other types of programs that are going to be for profit but not connected to one school, is that if you are full-time, there's a lot that they don't have to think about, because usually these programs are structured for full-time students. Because again, study abroad is not just about traveling someplace and you're going to party and you're going to learn a new language and eat lots of great food and all of this stuff. I mean, a lot of that does happen, and I recommend that because, that's part of what you want to do, or depending on what, ever floats your boat that you want to do abroad. But I think that a lot of students forget that you actually have to study when you study abroad. It's like part of the keyword that people miss. They hear abroad, but they don't hear study. And so if you are a full-time student, it makes it a lot easier, because the structure and the way that these programs are set up is typically made for full-time students. The other thing to also think about is the fact of, if you're trying to get course credit, and specifically if you are doing it through your college or university, your secondary school, something like that, or if you're doing it through another program and you're trying to earn something like elective credits, full-time is usually what they're looking for, because again, it translates over to say like, okay, like they would have earned this amount of credits if they were on campus at their regular school. This can transfer over to that. And then often too, it's not going to mess around too much with your potential graduation rate. Now, you may get lucky. Like me, I was able to graduate on time just fine, but I just happened to be lucky that I was at a school that was kind of really open to students trying whatever. And so when I said, I want to go and study abroad for a year, kind of randomly, they were like, sure, go ahead. But that usually does not happen. And so, you definitely want to be aware of how that's going to work. And for that reason, full-time status is preferred. Now, if you are a part-time student, you want to look and see, um, the majority of the part-time students that I work with and that I consult typically go in the summertime because, again, there's a lot less pressure in the summertime. Most students, if you're going to be in college or something like that, or even in high school or secondary school, a lot of students are really smart and they want to get ahead. Is that if you're just going to be kind of taking credits and doing different things throughout the summer, that is a great time to do it if you are a part-time student because you have less obligation. Again, there's still going to be like a compact time where you can study abroad. It's usually going to be like all of June, maybe some of July, something like that. So you still get the experience, but you just don't have it for as long of a time. And so I would highly recommend that you look into that, as an option for you. But you definitely want to kind of be clear about that for whatever type of program you're applying for, what your enrollment status has to be. Because if you are a part-time student and they require full-time student status, like a lot of programs do, you may not be eligible to do it. So the next factor to think about is going to be your grade point average, your GPA, or if you are outside the US, your potential qualification for honors or headed towards getting a first, something like that. Because a lot of times when people are applying to study abroad programs, this is what the program administrators will look for. So they're really looking to see, like, again, you don't have to have a, as we would say here in the US, like a 4.0 or a 5.0. I know in different countries, there are different rating scales for the GPAs and for kind of what qualifies for being, towards honors. But you need to still have it where you can basically show that you are competent at the college level academically. You're going to be able to not only take on the rigor of the work, because again, this is something that confuses study abroad students. As I mentioned earlier, there is the abroad part and the study part, and most people hear the abroad, but not the study. And so with study abroad, it's not like you're just going every day and all the classes are just fun and exciting and you're just, drinking daiquiris all day. It is not like that at all. Like most study abroad programs are meant to mirror whatever type of program you are already in at home. And so there is a strong academic base. And frankly, to be honest with you, if you are a student you're going from the US to a different country, I also have another blog post on this and I will do another video on this. You will find that outside the US, most classes are actually harder anyway because there's a different standard for learning. There's a different expectation, for what it means to actually compete, and that college and university is actually meant to be for learning and not just for socializing. I don't want to get on a tangent on that, but you actually find that, and it's a totally different world. So you definitely want to consider the fact that people are going to be looking at your GPA to see, like, can this person, you know, get into the rhythm of being in a different country. And again, there's all these different things that are piling on top of you as a study abroad student. You're adjusting to a new country. You may be finding, that you're not liking the food so much. You may not have caught up on your sleep. You may be learning a new language while you're there. Like there's all these different things. But does the overall picture of this person through their GPA help them sort of represent that, they would be a great student that can actually do this? So that definitely is a huge factor that plays into whether or not you could be accepted into a study abroad program. And usually on the list of the qualifications, you will see that there is some type of listing that says, there's a certain GPA standard. It could be a 3.3, it could be a 3.5, could be 3.7. Or if you're coming from a different country that's not the US, it could be that, had to already be, in first year honors or something like that. So that it automatically kind of lets you know, like, you are qualified, or you need to kind of think about this better and maybe find a program that's better suited for you. So just another factor to consider. Now, for the third factor, this is one of my favorite things to talk about because I'm like the essay queen. So I love writing essays. I'm that weird kid who always got really excited about term papers. And so when it comes to study abroad, the admissions essay is also an important factor for students. So this is something that, I work a lot with students on. If you want to learn more about my individualized study abroad consulting program, feel free to click the link in the description box. Starts at 30 minutes per session, very student budget friendly. But one of the things that sort of can trip students up, particularly if you have not been in a country or a place where you are expected to write essays, or I know some places they call it write a theme, something like that, where you're not expected to do that all the time. It can feel really intimidating because usually for study abroad essays, you're writing all about yourself. And even though a lot of research shows that most people like to talk about themselves, when they actually have to do it where they're sort of defending themselves to a way, or having to like explain, this is why I'm the best, this is why I'm good, it's something that us Americans are kind of raised to do. Like we're always kind of, raised to kind of show off and be like, this is why I'm the best, this is what I am. It's just a part of our culture. But a lot of other cultures outside of the US are not like that at all. And there are even some Americans that struggle with it, obviously. But I would just say that with the essay particular, this is going to be a great place for you to not only, I mean, first of all, you need to look and see, like, sometimes they will ask you specific questions that you have to answer, but a lot of times it's just kind of a free flow of something simple, like, tell me why you want to study abroad. So you need to be very specific about what you're talking about in there. So you don't want to go into the backstory of your history and how old you were when you got your first dog and all of that. Those are the same mistakes that people make a lot of times when they get asked, tell me about yourself in an interview. So you don't want to do that. You want to be specific and connect the points for the person reading it. So again, put yourself in their shoes and think about, what does this person want to hear based on what was asked of me? So if they're asking, why do you want to study abroad? Well, I want to study abroad because, my number one point is that I feel that it's going to help me in my career. Here are my career goals, blah, blah, blah. The next step is that I'm traveling to Germany and I want to learn German because I feel like it's going to connect to my career, blah, blah, blah. Whatever that is that's going to look for you, you want to be as precise and as clear and as effective to be able to get your point across in that essay as possible. The other thing too that an admissions essay to study abroad can do, as it often does when you're trying to get into college or university or even a private high school or something like that, is that it can often help to offset any flaws you may have. So if you are someone who maybe you just had a couple rough semesters, it happens, right? And maybe where your GPA is right now is not representative of what it was 2 semesters ago, but things have happened, life happens to people. But in that essay, you truly show that you are able to demonstrate your points, that you do have the academic rigor, and that you are committed to improving yourself. That can sometimes open another conversation because maybe you didn't reach the GPA level that they needed, but they can still connect the dots and say, well, their essay was really good. I wonder if we can bring them in for some interviews. I wonder if we can, talk to them more, explore more, but they have to have something there to kind of latch onto to say, okay, like maybe the GPA wasn't the best, but let's, interview them at least and hear more about their story through their essay. So definitely take the essay very serious. I know that can be intimidating, particularly for people that are not the best writers, but it's a good time to sort of be able to showcase yourself a little bit differently outside of your transcript. So take it seriously and just feel confident and know that you can do well on it and still have the opportunity to get accepted, even if you don't have the best GPA. Okay, so to answer the question, are study abroad programs hard to get into? Well, it depends on what your program is and what they're looking for. I know you're like, want, like, you could have told me that at the beginning. But again, I think looking at those factors that I pointed out are going to be key. There's no way to kind of say for one particular study abroad program what it's going to be. But what I can tell you is that those are definitely kind of the three main factors that play a role in any type of study abroad program. So if you have enjoyed this video and you want to see more like it, I release new videos every Friday. And so go ahead and click on the subscribe button and go ahead and click the like button if you haven't already. I know that you've liked this video and I will see you in the next one.